The lake was a mirror, black and still, swallowing sound and starlight alike. Evelyn stood at the pier's edge, her breath ghosting against the fog, staring at the boat that had drifted in without a soul aboard. Its motor was off, yet it had arrived as if guided by intent. Jonas said nothing. His flashlight trembled faintly as it swept across the hull, empty, except for a single photograph face down on the seat. "Don't touch it," Evelyn whispered, though she didn't know why. The air around them pulsed, the water shifting just once, as if exhaling. Captain Myrick's voice crackled through the radio, brittle with static. "Leave it be." The lake keeps what it's shown, but Evelyn was already stepping forward, drawn by the faint shimmer beneath the photo's edge, where something moved in reflection. Something that moved only when she didn't. Evelyn's voice broke the silence. "Someone was here recently," she said, brushing her fingers along the damp seat of the boat. The metal was cold, slick with dew that smelled faintly of gasoline and pine. Jonas climbed in beside her, his boots creaking on the aluminum floor, the flashlight beam crawling over the edges. He found no footprints, only that photograph, now face up. A portrait of a little girl standing at the lake's edge, staring straight ahead. But the lake behind her was wrong. Its reflection showed not the girl, but something rising from the water behind her, pale and human shaped. Jonas cursed under his breath, while Evelyn's hand drifted to the photograph again. She wasn't afraid of ghosts. She was afraid of memories. "It's a trick of light," she whispered, but even as she said it, she could hear the soft lapping of water beneath them, matching the rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't theirs. By morning, the fog had lifted just enough to reveal 3 more boats, all drifting aimlessly in the shallows. Captain Myrick's weathered face was pale beneath his cap as he tied the last one to the dock. Each vessel bore the same story. No passengers, 1 photograph. Jonas lined them on the pier, the photos side by side, water-beaded and curling in the cold light. Evelyn knelt to study them. Every image showed a different person, but the same lake and the same silent figure lingering behind them. She noticed something else. The reflections in the water of each photo changed when she looked away, like eyes tracking her. "They're warnings," Captain Myrick muttered, his hand trembling slightly. "The lake remembers what we forget." His words hung heavy in the still morning, echoing across the water like the last breath of a dream. The divers prepared to go under. The lake's surface looked calm, almost merciful. But Evelyn felt its pull, an invisible pressure beneath the silence. She fitted her mask and adjusted her oxygen line as Jonas checked her gauge. "Depth limits 30 meters, he reminded her. Voice steady but his eyes restless. Captain Myrick stood at the pier, lighting another cigarette he wouldn't finish. "The bottom's deeper than that," he said quietly. "And older." Evelyn eased into the water, her reflection breaking apart into waves as the cold wrapped around her like glass. Beneath the surface, the light dimmed into emerald shadows. She could see the outlines of the boats above her, faint ghosts hovering in liquid air. Then, in the distance, a flicker. Something metallic, something human. She kicked once and descended. The deeper Evelyn went, the quieter the world became. Her breathing filled her ears, steady, rhythmic, the only heartbeat she could trust. Light thinned until it was a green whisper, particles drifting like dust in a cathedral. Then, through the haze, she saw the first boat beneath her, perfectly preserved, floating upside down just above the silty bottom. Something shimmered near it, a reflection that wasn't her own. She hovered closer, her flashlight beam slicing through the water. Beneath the hull, a face stared up at her through the mirrored surface, eyes wide open, mouth still, hair drifting like seaweed. She recognized it instantly. It was hers. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then the reflection blinked. Jonas waited at the surface, watching the dive line tremble in his hands. Each second stretched into minutes as the radio hissed in static murmurs. "Evelyn, status?" he said, voice low, steady by force of habit. The lake gave nothing back. Only when the fog shifted did he catch a flicker. One bubble breaking the surface, then another. He leaned closer until his reflection met his eyes in the water. It blinked before he did. He flinched, pulling back. Then the line tugged sharply. Once, twice. His pulse spiked. "Evelyn." The voice that answered from the radio wasn't hers. It whispered his name slowly, as though tasting it. Behind him, Captain Mirek's cigarette fell into the water and hissed out. The reflection of both men stared up at them, unblinking, smiling faintly from beneath the surface. Below, Evelyn swam deeper, her flashlight beam trembling through the emerald dark. The reflection had vanished, leaving behind a current that pulsed softly around her, tugging at her suit. She moved past the overturned boat and saw shapes, ropes swaying like kelp, old fishing nets tangled around wooden planks, and deeper still, something shining. She drifted closer. It was another boat, half buried in silt. Inside it, a camera floated weightlessly. The flash bulb cracked. She grabbed it and turned toward the surface, but something brushed against her shoulder. A hand, cold as the lake itself. Her breath stuttered in the regulator, eyes wide as a face emerged from the gloom beside her. It was hers again. But this time the mouth was moving, forming words she couldn't hear. Jonas couldn't wait any longer. He strapped on his oxygen tank, the weight biting into his shoulders. "You can't," Mirek warned, voice trembling. "If you go after her, it'll show you too." Jonas ignored him. He plunged into the water, the cold slicing through his clothes like a blade. The world above vanished instantly. Only the hum of his breath and the glow of his wrist light remained. As he descended, shadows pulsed along the bottom. He saw Evelyn below, frozen mid-water, staring into her own reflection. He reached for her shoulder, but as he did, her image shattered into ripples. Both of them suddenly surrounded by 1,000 mirrored faces, drifting like glass. Every face was theirs. Every one of them was drowning. On the pier, Captain Mirek listened to the radio crackle and die. The fog had thickened, curling into shapes that almost resembled human outlines. He stepped back, trembling, eyes darting between the still boats tied at the dock. One of them moved, just a fraction. He leaned closer. The ropes were fraying, pulled taut toward the open lake. Mirek stumbled backward, tripping over the coiled line. As he fell, he caught sight of the water's surface. There he was, reflected perfectly. But something else stood behind his reflection, taller, thin. A shape with his eyes, but no face. He crawled away from the edge, but the reflection didn't follow. It smiled. Beneath the lake, Jonas found Evelyn again, or what he thought was her. She turned slowly toward him, and her face was calm now, almost peaceful. "It's not real," he said through the regulator, bubbles rising like silver rain. She reached out and placed her hand against his mask, her eyes filled with something deeper than fear, recognition. Then her reflection appeared behind her. Identical, eyes black and empty. Both Evelyns moved in unison, whispering something he couldn't hear. Jonas tried to pull away, but the water thickened like syrup. The reflection's mouth opened wider until it wasn't a mouth anymore, but a void pulling everything toward it. Light, air, sound. Jonas screamed into the dark as his flashlight blinked out, leaving only the glimmer of two mirrored faces staring through the blackness. Evelyn floated in darkness, her pulse sensing with the slow thrum of the lake. She couldn't tell if she was rising or sinking anymore, only that the reflection beside her was speaking without sound. It mouthed her name, then turned its gaze upward, toward the faint shimmer of daylight above. "What do you want from me?" she whispered through the regulator, bubbles scattering her voice. The reflection smiled faintly and raised its hand. When Evelyn followed its gesture, she saw the surface, now showing not water, but her apartment, the desk, the framed photo of her sister, and the empty chair by the window. She reached upward, and the lake seemed to bend with her, like glass warping under heat. "No," she breathed, trembling. "Not again." The reflection's smile widened, as if it had waited for those words all along. Jonas drifted downward, deeper than he had meant to go. The pressure pressed against his chest like invisible hands. The beam of his light trembled, revealing the lakebed, strewn with objects that shouldn't be there. A child's tricycle, a rusted lantern, a typewriter, each half buried in sand as if left in haste. He reached for the lantern. When he touched it, a vision burst through the dark, a hospital corridor, flickering white lights, and the echo of his own voice shouting a name he hadn't spoken in years. "Sophie." His daughter's laughter filled the water, muffled but real. Then came the reflection again, not of himself but of her, standing beneath the surface, hand pressed to the water, smiling. Jonas choked on his breath, whispering, "You're not real." But the lantern in his hand flickered to life, pulsing with the rhythm of her laugh. On the pier above, Captain Mirek sat in silence, hands buried in his coat. The fog pressed closer now, thick and alive. The radio spat static like whispers circling him. Then, through the white noise, came a voice he hadn't heard in decades. "Mirek, come home." His head snapped up. The fog parted just enough to show a faint figure standing in the water, waist deep, wearing the same raincoat his wife had worn the night she drowned. His eyes blurred with tears. "Lydia," he rasped. The figure lifted a hand, motioning him forward. Mirek stumbled to his feet, boots scraping against the dock, breath shallow. He knew it couldn't be real, but love is the one illusion no man refuses twice. He stepped toward the edge, and the figure smiled, reflected twice in the water, but neither reflection matched her face. Evelyn rose toward the light, clutching the broken camera she had found. It was old, heavy, its lens cracked like a spiderweb. She surfaced with a gasp, tearing off her mask, air biting her lungs. The fog was thicker than before, silent, suffocating. The pier was empty. "Jonas," she called out, her voice echoing across the lake like a prayer to no one. The camera slipped from her hand into the boat, its back cracked open, revealing soaked film still intact. She hesitated, then pulled one frame free. The image was faint, but visible. Herself standing beside Jonas on this very pier. But the date scratched into the corner read tomorrow. A chill moved through her as the reflection on the water began to shift again. She looked down and saw the same photo, but in it she was alone. Jonas surfaced moments later, coughing hard, gripping the edge of the pier. The world above looked unfamiliar. Fog, still water, silence. Evelyn turned toward him, tears mixing with the lake on her face. "What did you see?" she asked, her voice breaking. He couldn't answer. Behind her, in the lake's reflection, he saw not Evelyn but his daughter standing there waiting. Her mouth moved silently, as if urging him to follow. "She's here," he whispered, trembling. Evelyn reached for him, shaking her head. "That's not her," but he had already turned. The reflection smiled, raised a hand, and beckoned him beneath the surface. Jonas stepped forward. The water opened like a door. The moment Jonas stepped into the water, the surface sealed behind him without a sound. Evelyn screamed his name, diving after him, her voice swallowed instantly by the fog. Beneath the surface, Jonas sank slowly, eyes wide, the reflection of his daughter guiding him downward through shafts of faint green light. The water was clearer here, impossibly clear, revealing the ruins of what looked like a village, foundations, rooftops, fences half swallowed by silt. Evelyn followed, kicking hard, reaching for him. Her fingers brushed his shoulder before he slipped away into the glow. Then she saw it, the reflection of herself swimming beside her. But the reflection was crying, tears floating upward as bubbles. The reflection's mouth moved. "You left her too." Evelyn froze, the words slicing deeper than any cold could reach. Captain Mirek stood at the water's edge, breathing hard. The fog had begun to shimmer, folding itself into soft, shifting faces. He gripped the dock's railing, knuckles white. "You took her," he whispered to the lake. "You took them all." The water lapped gently against the pier, and for the first time it answered. A woman's voice, clear and distant, rose from below. "No, Mirek, you gave her to us." The old man's face crumpled as he fell to his knees, tears cutting through the grime on his skin. He looked into the lake and saw the reflection of his wife, her face serene, her arms open. Then behind her reflection countless others appeared, men, women, children, all floating in silence, all watching him. They looked peaceful. They looked like forgiveness. Mirek took a shuddering breath, stepped forward, and disappeared beneath the mirror. Evelyn reached the lake bed. Her light fell upon the village square, a stone well, cracked, overgrown with tendrils of algae. Jonas knelt beside it, motionless, staring into its dark opening. "Jonas," she called through her regulator, bubbles scattering her voice. He turned, and she saw his face, pale, eyes glazed with awe. "She's here," he murmured, the words escaping as a stream of bubbles. Then he gestured for her to look. Inside the well, a light flickered, and shapes began to move, reflections of people, hundreds of them, flickering between forms. Evelyn saw herself among them, standing at the edge of the lake, holding a photograph she hadn't yet taken. The water inside the well shimmered like mercury. The voice that rose from it spoke both inside and outside her head. "We only show what you bury." The reflection spoke in ripples rather than sound, and Evelyn understood it without language. The lake had not cursed them. It remembered them. Every fear, every loss, every regret sank and stayed. She saw Jonas kneeling before the reflection of his daughter, her small hands cupping his face, her eyes too calm. "You can stay," the reflection told him. He nodded once, a quiet surrender. Evelyn reached for him, desperate, but her own reflection caught her wrist. "You can't save him," it whispered through the water, voice vibrating like a string. "You never saved her." Evelyn's heart stopped. The reflection showed her the last day on land, her sister on the dock, calling for her, the photograph camera slipping from her hand before the water took her. Evelyn closed her eyes and let the current pull her downward. Above, the lake had grown utterly still. The fog began to thin, revealing the faint outlines of the pier and the mountains beyond. No ripples, no sound. Just stillness. Then, one by one, the abandoned boats began to move. Not drifting, but aligning, forming a perfect circle at the lake's center. The reflections within them glowed faintly, revealing faces, Evelyn, Jonas, Mirek, and countless others, all calm, all watching. From the center of that circle rose a single photograph, hovering just above the surface, water sliding off its edges. It showed the lake as it looked now, silent, calm, untouched. And if one looked closely enough, deep in the mirrored water beneath, they would see the truth. Every reflection looking back was still alive. Dawn seeped through the fog, turning the lake's surface to pale silver. Evelyn floated near the center, barely moving, her eyes open to the mirrored sky above. Somewhere beneath her, Jonas' voice echoed faintly through the radio. Calm now, almost peaceful. "Do you hear it?" he asked. She listened. The water hummed, low and steady. A sound like breathing. It wasn't frightening anymore. It was familiar. Like the rhythm of a heartbeat she had once known. "Yes," she whispered. "I hear you." The reflection before her shifted. No longer her twin, but something gentler, faceless yet radiant, as if the lake itself had taken form to listen. For the first time since arriving, Evelyn smiled. The lake was not taking, it was remembering. Jonas drifted upward through shafts of light, his hands open, empty. The image of his daughter faded softly into the glow, her laughter trailing like bells under glass. He whispered, "Goodbye, Sophie," and felt the word leave him like an exhale years overdue. The current lifted him gently toward the surface, each meter brighter, lighter. His regulator hissed, bubbles dancing around him like snow. For the first time since the dive began, he felt warmth in the water. Above, Evelyn's silhouette waited, a figure outlined in light. The lake no longer resisted. It released. It had shown them what needed to be seen. And now it was done. On the pier, Captain Mirek gasped awake. His coat was soaked, his hands gripping the wood. He blinked against the new light, unsure how he had returned. The fog had lifted completely. Around the pier, the boats floated quietly, each aligned as before, yet now empty in peace, not absence. Mirek rose slowly, heart aching, and looked down into the water. There, reflected, was his wife's smile, not sorrowful but proud. "Go home," she whispered, her reflection breaking into ripples that caught the morning sun. Mirek removed his cap, pressing it to his chest. "Thank you," he murmured, and for the first time in years, he meant it. Evelyn surfaced beside Jonas. They removed their masks and floated quietly, the cold forgotten. "It's over," she said. Jonas nodded, following her gaze toward the mountains. Mist curled away from the slopes, revealing green peaks and sunlight breaking through. The lake was glass again, but no longer black. It shimmered with color, each ripple a breath. "Do you think it was ever real?" Jonas asked. Evelyn smiled faintly. "Real enough to change us." Together they swam back to the pier, each stroke slow and certain. Behind them, the water settled, the reflections blending into one, a perfect stillness that finally felt alive. By noon, the lake was clear, the boats still, the mountains silent. Evelyn sat at the end of the pier, the broken camera beside her, its film drying in the sun. Jonas joined her, silent, both watching the water. Then, from somewhere deep below, a final shimmer rose. A single photograph floating upward, landing between them. It showed the lake as it was now, alive with light and reflection. No ghosts, no shadows. Evelyn lifted it gently. "It remembers," she said. Jonas nodded, smiling faintly. "Then let it." They left the pier hand in hand, the photograph fluttering once before sliding back into the lake, where it dissolved into the mirrored depths, home again. They say the lake sleeps differently now. The fog still comes at dawn, curling through the reeds, but it no longer hides the sound of breathing below. Fishermen claim that on clear mornings, if you look closely, you can see faces in the water, smiling, serene, never pleading. Evelyn and Jonas never returned to the dive station, yet their names linger like the hush before rain. Children leave pebbles by the pier and watch the ripples carry them toward the center, certain the water remembers each one. The old warden's cabin stands empty, door half open, radio silent. Still, when storms roll in, a calm voice sometimes murmurs through the static. The lake keeps what it's shown, then, as quickly as it comes, the voice fades and the water settles again. Years passed before anyone spoke of the divers again. The village rebuilt its trails and cafes, painting the pier bright white each spring. Visitors came for photographs, drawn by the mirror, perfect surface. No one saw the depth beneath it. Yet sometimes, just before dusk, the reflection thickens, sky turning to liquid glass, and those who pause long enough say they feel a pulse beneath the boards. It isn't fear that rises, it's recognition, as though the lake hums softly to reassure them. I remember you too. A young researcher once returned to test the water. She found no toxins, no gases, nothing strange, only a trace of silver sediment that shimmered under the microscope. When she lifted her eyes from the lens, the vial of water was glowing faintly, casting light across her hands. That night she dreamed of the lake, breathing beneath a canopy of stars, its voice neither male nor female, only kind. When she woke, the glow was gone, but the air still smelled of rain and pine, and the word remember lingered like a heartbeat. When winter comes, the lake freezes into a perfect mirror. Locals skate across it by lantern light, their laughter ringing against the mountains. Beneath the ice, the reflections glide slower, graceful and weightless, moving in time with the living above. Some nights a shape of light passes under the skaters, tracing their path like a guardian's hand. No one fears it anymore. They call it the breath, a shimmer that appears only when hearts are steady and thoughts are kind. It vanishes with dawn, leaving the ice clear, flawless, and still. Now the story is told quietly, mostly at night, of a lake that shows what you fear until you learn to love what you lost. Parents tell it to calm restless children, travelers whisper it by campfires, and the water listens. Some say the lake is older than time, others that it was born from tears. Yet every version ends the same. When the reflection smiles back, it's time to rest. On clear evenings, the last light of the sun turns the whole surface to gold, and for a moment, no one can tell where the world ends and the memory begins. Night drifts across the valley like a blanket drawn over the hills. The lake lies open to the stars, a single perfect mirror holding every light above. No wind stirs, no sound breaks the hush, except the slow rhythm of water touching wood. In that silence, the reflections breathe, faint ripples of gold, silver, and blue sliding over one another until sky and lake become the same soft darkness. Somewhere in that stillness, Evelyn's laugh echoes once, carried not by voice, but by memory. The mountains answer with a sigh. All things that were heavy sink into rest, and the world folds itself gently around the water's quiet heart. Mist gathers once more before dawn, not as fog, but as breath. The lake inhaling, exhaling. Beneath its surface, memories drift like petals, turning slowly in the dim light. They are neither trapped nor lost, simply at peace. The reflection that once mimicked now listens, and the fears that once clawed for air lie still, transformed into echoes of compassion. When the first bird calls, the lake brightens, each note scattering light across the surface like rain on glass. Nothing answers, nothing needs to. As the sun climbs, the pier warms, and the water turns translucent green. Villagers begin their day unaware that for a moment, the lake glowed from within. A child's laughter echoes from the shore. The ripples carry it outward until it becomes part of the morning breeze. The lake listens, always. Its memory has softened into music, so faint, it can only be felt, not heard. Whoever walks beside it feels lighter, though they do not know why. That is the lake's last kindness, to be forgotten and still remember. At noon, the mountains lean closer, their shadows reaching the far shore. The lake mirrors them perfectly, as if to reassure the world it still exists. The air smells of pine and rain. A single dragonfly lands on the water, its wings scattering concentric rings that fade as quickly as dreams. Far beneath, something luminous stirs. Not a ghost, not a memory, just light remembering how to move. The rhythm returns. Inhale, exhale, stillness. When night falls again, the lake closes its eyes. The stars lean down to rest upon it, one by one. Nothing stirs, but the breath of wind threads. Those who dream nearby see only calm water, smooth as glass, and hear a voice without sound. Sleep now. All is reflected. All is remembered. The water sighs once, the mountains answer, and the world drifts into stillness. The lake, at last, dreams of nothing.